everyone. Before you watch this next episode of Brian's Brain, I want to let you know that this will probably be the last episode, at least for a while. Brian LeBlanc is doing fine. He is progressing through his journey with dementia. So at this point, we just think it's best to have this last episode where Brian talks about the past, present, and future to leave you with. Please enjoy. Well, Brian and Maureen, nice to see you this afternoon for another recording of Brian's Brain.
Good to see you, Penny.
And it's always good to see you. And there you go.
Well, thanks. So what's the weather like? What's the weather like in Florida? We are finally coming out of our deep freeze of 0 degrees, and it's like in the 40s here. What's it like there?
Oh, wow. Well, it's unusual for us. It's 78.
Wow. I kind of want to be there. I know.
You come, Penny Cook, come on down.
I'll jump on that plane. Well, I so appreciate you both taking the time once again today just to have a conversation about what's going on. And Brian, I know that when we were talking before we started recording, we were going to talk a little bit about your journey with dementia and kind of recap a little bit how it started and now where it's going. And I know that one of the things that we first talked about was this dream that you had after you were diagnosed. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. This was right after I was diagnosed, and I really didn't know what to do or how I was going to do this now. I know I can't do that now because that would, it wouldn't allow me, my brain would not allow me to do these things. So one night I had gone to sleep, and it might be a little bit different now than it was before, but I woke, well, I was having a dream is what was happening. And I was in this boxing ring, and I wanted to get a message through, but I also wanted to have somewhat of a picture of what I was going through, because they always say that a picture can paint 1,000 words. So
paint a picture of what was happening in your dream.
Right, in my dream. So I just kind of let it go. Let's play this out and see where it goes. And it got to a point where I was in this boxing ring with this huge guy. He could have, it reminds me of the
cartoon.
Yeah, it's a cartoon with the bunny,
like David and Goliath, like, right?
So, yeah, something like that. And the bell rang, and he just ran right across the ring and started beating the hell out of me. And I started thinking, who I didn't know who the guy was. He didn't tell me who he was. At that point, I just, ran around the boxing ring. And so it kept on going. It kept on this thing. So
he knocked you out.
Yeah. He knocked me out, and there I was laying on the ground, or on the ring, And this thought came into my mind. And that thought was, you stupid, stupid man, just lay there on the floor and he can't hurt you anymore. And it was strange because I knew that, but I couldn't form it in my brain. And so
What was the referee doing?
the referee was doing the countdown, and I
Wow.
could hear it so clearly, you know, saying, you know, 10, 9, 8. And I knew at that point that if I did not get up, I was going to stay down on the mat, knowing that if I didn't come out, if I didn't get up and, you know, try to defend myself, it would be
The end.
the end of me. And so I just kind of wiggled myself up. I stood up, and I hit him right square in the jaw. And this time he fell down. So to me, that's what my beginning of my
Journey.
my journey. So I started trying to get myself off the ring so I could stand up. And he came at me again, and I hit him one more time. And this time he fell on the ground and he couldn't get up.
Wow.
So it's some, you know, I'm not going to say that's exactly how it worked, but I can say that that is what was a life-changing experience. I know it was in my head, but I also knew that while he was on the ground, I better get up and jump out of the ring.
You are smart. I've always thought you're a smart one.
And so I stood over him, you know, because I'm a very strong guy. And actually, I didn't want him to wake up. So I just stood there and I started yelling at him, saying, yeah, you ain't got nothing, blah, blah, blah. And then I started walking back to my corner, and I turned around, and guess who was there? The big guy. And so that is what sort of chartered my course.
And you woke up after that, right?
And then I woke up, but I felt energized. And it was like no other feeling that I've ever had. And I knew what I had to do, and which that was that from that point forward, I had to trust in my words, trust in my thoughts, not what anybody else was saying, but just do my part. And that's when I really heard the referee still counting down. And I'm thinking to myself,
Self?
thank you. We do that a lot. And here's the guy. And I thought to myself, if I don't get up, I'm going to be no more.
But
Because
from
of this guy.
dream, didn't you also come up with your motto about I may have?
Oh yeah, I may,
I have
right. Yeah.
What was that? What's that?
That was, I may have Alzheimer's, but Alzheimer's does not have me.
Right. And that came from that dream.
That came from that dream.
And that's amazing, Brian, because in a sense, that's how I met you, was because of this motto that fueled it. It almost seems like it began to fuel then the work that you started doing. And I remember a conversation I had with you, I don't know how many years ago, and you told me, that this was now kind of your life's purpose, was
Yeah,
to really educate others and help people become aware of what it's like to live with Alzheimer's, especially when it does not have you.
right, right.
And that's what's
And
been, to me, an amazing part of your journey.
I've had lots of I've had lots of journeys, in my head. And I know, like now, when I first started on my course, and then the the voices and so forth that I had, it was very simplified. And I heard that if you don't do something to help other people, you're going to be one of those people that has no control over the rest of their life.
Who else did you do this for? Your mom.
Oh, yeah, for my mom. My mom.
Because you basically saw her have to resign herself
Yeah,
to what everybody told her living with Alzheimer's was going to be like.
yeah. And that's it's not a funny haha, but it was funny because my mom, she had it for a long time. And it was hard to see her make that statement, because I always looked at my mom as being this very, very wonderful person, but it was also a place where I didn't go. I mean, she didn't go through the countdown. She just stood up to it and walked across the ring and stood toe to toe with the guy. And so she, in my mind, she hit him square in the chin, and he was gone. He's never returned.
But you felt that your mom lived a life believing that all she was capable of when she had her Alzheimer's journey was what people told her she was
Right.
capable of.
Right.
And
And
you seem to have lived your life so different than that.
yeah, only because I didn't know where to go. So I said, hey, let me go over here, and maybe it's better. And then something else would pop up and say, hey, over here, come test me out, and let's talk. And I just did that time after time after time. And then the biggest part of my journey was who is sitting right next to me right now.
That's right. I gave him vascular dementia then in
Yeah,
20.
yeah, there was
You continued the journey, Maureen. There's no doubt about it.
yeah, yeah. She didn't exactly plan it out exactly, but it's like, hey, Brian, got a surprise for you.
Well, actually, I think I can give some perspective here that's different, because Brian was in the moment with everything he did, and lots of people knew him better than the audience did. And I got to be an audience member at his very first public speaking engagement.
Yeah.
And my original thought was, I need to get this guy as part of my business. I don't know why he's not working for me.
See, it was all about her.
Yeah. I know you way better than that, Brian LeBlanc.
And I saw him on occasion, and I just kept seeing a man who, although the words coming out of his mouth were saying, "I have dementia," his behaviors weren't saying it. And now that I've gotten to know him a little bit better, what I would tell you is I think Brian just decided not to be afraid. He would get, he wanted to be where he was invited to go and speak more than he wanted to listen to his fears.
Mhm.
And so all by himself, a man living with dementia would get on an airplane and fly across the country and navigate his way to a hotel and navigate his way to a speaking engagement. I just stood in awe when I would watch him do that, because as I was thinking, hey, follow him, he knows where he's going. So tell him about, what you literally have done to just push away the stigma that people assign to those living with dementia.
It was something like you hear about these folks that do have some sort of dementia, but the messages that were coming out from that I'll just say that group, they were seeing me doing what I did, and then they just stopped listening to that because they had formed my words into theirs. And they said, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. Look at this guy, wait, I'm sorry. Look at this handsome guy, and I'm sorry, did you have something in your head?
No. Just listening.
Does it rattle when you do that?
There's not much else in there, you know that.
It's because you're open-minded.
Yes. Maureen, I love you.
I love you too.
And that's when the fight started.
Well, it's interesting. My mother has dementia.
Yeah.
And she is in great awe of Brian. And I watch, after she has spent time with Brian and she goes back to her assisted living, I watch how much differently she carries herself and she interacts with people and such. So he's inspired her, I know.
I think that that's what it is. I think that word inspire, Brian, you have inspired so many people. You've spoken for us at Pioneer Network so many times. And the first time that I met you was when you had a speaking engagement for Leading Age. And we were in Washington together, and that's where I met you. And it was awe-inspiring because I couldn't believe, Maureen, to your point, that you had traveled there via plane, that you had not only navigated all of that, but I remember the hotel we were in was this large hotel. I was getting lost trying to find my room. Just all of these different things. The thing that I was most amazed by, though, was your stage presence and the words and the stories that came out of your mouth. I mean, it was, and then I got to know you. But at that time, it was really just, I was just amazed. And then it almost is like you were the person that kind of, once the camera turned on, it didn't matter what was going on, you were on. And not only that, you seemed to enjoy it. Like you seemed to embrace the opportunity. It didn't seem like a chore for you. It really seemed like you embraced it.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. Yes.
So as you've been progressing through your life and on your journey,
right,
when you have come up against obstacles, and I think about when you went to Leading Age in Washington, D.C., what happened when you're getting ready to leave, when you're in the airport?
what did I do?
I can.
Did it snow a lot?
Oh, the snow.
We got caught in a DC snowstorm in March, Brian, and this is,
Wow.
and I think that, it's interesting that you bring that up, Maureen, because this is my recollection of it, Brian. I think I met you before you spoke at Leading Age. I was incredibly impressed, just in meeting you. And then I heard you were going to speak, you spoke, even more impressed. And then I believe it was the next morning, we just happened to meet each other at the cafe getting coffee.
And orange juice.
And orange juice. And if I hadn't met you the previous day, I'm not sure what I would have thought, because you weren't the same person to me. I'll just say, you seemed really befuddled. You were not able to speak with a strong voice. The words did not come easily compared to what they were like the day before. And I said, Brian, what's going on? And you said, my flight got canceled. Snow. And I thought, yes, it is. And I thought, this is one thing that came in to your life, and obviously this would have caused anybody stress, but there was a lot of stress involved. And I mean, one of the things that happened, I remember, not only did that flight get canceled, it was like your next flight got canceled. And I think that, you went through at least 2 or 3 flights before you finally got to the airport the next day. And luckily we were able to enjoy a great meal. I remember we had burgers and beer, and talked about HGTV because we both shared a love of HGTV. I remember this journey, and I remember at that point in saying, Maureen, like you said, the audience saw one thing, but people who knew Brian saw something else. Like, that's how I felt. And the one, what I always think, Brian, with your journey, and, I think about this with some of our other friends too, that we know who are living with dementia. I feel like you have pushed off the guy in the boxing ring by really engaging with life to the fullest. I mean, that's kind of how I see it. That engagement that you have had with life, saying yes to invitations, challenging yourself to all of these speaking engagements and travel and things like that. And even during the pandemic, when we all switched to doing this over Zoom, you challenged and pushed yourself, the blog, all of these things. And I feel like you really pushed, kind of the dementia in a sense away in some ways. I mean, that's how my mind kind of sees it. So I want to ask you, as you look towards kind of what the future is, how do you put that same message to work now and going into the future, do you think?
Well, the boxing ring still swims around in my head. And then it came to me, I'm saying, here I am talking to all these people, and I had no idea what type of impact as to, is this going to give them the message that I really wanted? Because they were not exactly sitting around, because this is just something that they do before the conference starts and all that. And then it just became something that was within me. And when people tell me, they say, I heard you speak back in this time. What are you doing now? And I said, I'm still fighting. And they didn't know what to say. And then they said 3 words. Oh, I'm sorry. I said, please don't tell me, please don't feel sorry for me. I said, because I'm living a life now that I would have loved to live in the light without the boxing ring. but the boxing ring showed me so much. And I thought to myself, I know that I can overcome this. And in my life, I have had things that I have had to come face to face with. And what you would, oh, okay. And so, and that's what I would do with different people, you know, and why I've never really wanted to tell the story, but I couldn't make it as a BS session. I didn't want to lead them down that path. So
I don't want you to forget the story about when you watched Tony Bennett sing with Lady Gaga.
Oh Lord.
And he turned to me. To me, this is like the definition of what Brian will do until the end of time. He turned to me and he says, "You know why he can do that, don't you?" I said, "No, I don't." He said, "He's got cognitive reserve." For Tony. He said, "No, this is what he's done all of his life." He said, "And the best jobs I had in my life were when I did marketing, when I did public speaking, when I did advertising." He says, "That's my cognitive reserve." And he said, "That's my happy place." And I think you plan on staying in your happy place as long as you can, don't you?
Yes, that's nothing but the truth.
You know, that's beautiful. And I think that it's an appropriate way to end our time together today, is that happy place, Brian, because as you were talking before, what I was thinking is resourceful. That's kind of how I've thought of you. Resourceful and being able to pull those things that have made you happy, that have given you purpose and engaged you throughout your whole life. And for you, you know, words have a lot to do with that. There is no doubt about it. And that's what's so much fun too. And I will say words and your sense of humor. And those are two things that you put that together, and your cognitive reserves seem pretty strong. So I want to thank both of you today for the time. Brian, as always, thank you for your authenticity, your openness, your willingness to teach people through your experiences what it's like, to provide them with empathy and knowledge. And Maureen, as a care partner, I cannot thank you enough.
No, it's my pleasure and honor.
And it's also my pleasure to do that over and over again. So it's what I do. So,
and you do it well.
Yes,
well, thank you. So do you.
Well, thanks. You know, I have a good teacher.
And she's hidden her dementia diagnosis.
Yes, I know. Yeah. She does, and she does that well too, you know.
Well, to both of you, thank you so much. And to all of you, thank you for joining us for another edition of Brian's Brain.
Goodbye.
Bye. Good seeing you.